Hi, hey, hello. How's it going? It's Emily. And today we're going to be starting the holiday reading vlog. And there's not going to be any sort of game or surprise element to this one. I'm just going to be straight up reading my Christmas holiday books in whatever order I feel like reading them. So we have actually already read one book for this vlog, and that is The Christmas Tree Farm by Laurie Gilmore. And this was just cute, fun. It was kind of like the first one where there's really not much depth at all. And to some degree, we kind of are told things rather than shown things. But it's still cute and vibey and fun for the holiday season. And we're following our main female character here who has purchased a Christmas tree farm and is just looking for a new start and can't really afford to kind of fix things up or make things quite how she wants to, what she's picturing in her head. But she's trying to get through the holiday season because she, hasn't had time or money to kind of get things fully ready for the holiday season like she would want to. But she's still, the trees are there and ready, and she still wants to welcome people in so that they can start buying their Christmas trees for the season. And so she's learning a bit about running her business and learning about this town. And our male main character here is the brother of the female main character in the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. And so, we see some of our other characters. I haven't actually read the second one, which is the one that is about a bookstore. So, I will always read a book about a bookstore. So that one I definitely want to read. And so he's in town for the holiday season, visiting his sister, and he moved out to, it was at the West Coast, to follow a relationship that did not work out. And so he's trying to figure out his life as well and figure out what he wants to do, where he wants to be, who he wants to be outside of that relationship, and what he really wants for himself. And so, she's definitely the grump here, and he is walking his dogs one day, doesn't realize that, or has not been warned that someone new has just purchased the Christmas tree farm, and so it is now once again private property, and that someone lives there. And so she comes across him as he's walking his dogs, and anyway, but yeah, she's the grump. He kind of warms her up a bit, and it's cute. It's fine. It's perfect for the season. Again, not much depth there. I'm hoping that some of my other ones will have some more depth. Anyway, so the one I'm about to read is Good Spirits by B.K. Borison, and just to give you a bit of a glimpse into what is going to be going on. We have The Nightmare Before Christmas that I would like to read as well. This one I just got. Actually, let me go ahead and put some of the clips in here as I'm talking. We actually just went to the holiday market here in DC downtown, which is super cute. Really fun to just walk around with a nice hot drink and shop around at the vendors, get some last minute gifts for friends and family and stuff. And as luck would have it, there was not one but two bookstores that had booths there. And so I did get 107 Days from Mahogany Books, and I got The Nightmare Before Christmas, as well as the fourth book in the Tomes and Tea series there's a romance bookstore in Alexandria called Friends to Lovers. If you're ever in the area, go check it out. But anyway, I got that one there and just couldn't resist. I also have All I Want for Christmas, and this is by Maggie Knox. I did read The Holiday Swap and had a fun time with it, so I wanted to get this one. And I think most of the rest of these I got used at McKay's and just found some holiday ones. I was like, all right, this is my holiday lineup. And I got One Day in December by Josie Silver. I got You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince. And then I also found, is this the Owl Crate edition of Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake? And it was too cute to pass up. And then, as I mentioned in the previous vlog, I ended the previous vlog by talking about the first two books in the Adena Shire series, and this third one is very winter festive, holiday focused, and follows, is it a winter festival or some winter games or something that our Grump Jez enters reluctantly? It's going to be super cute. Anyway, I also have one more. I'll show it at some point in this vlog. I also have one book that is actually really, really cool. It is there's a bookshop or a bookstore in New York. Is it the Mysterious Bookshop? And they, over the years, have commissioned writers to write a mystery, just like a little short story of a mystery that in some way involves the bookstore. And in this one, it's actually also holiday centered. So, or at least I think some of them are going to be holiday centered. Anyway, so literally it's just a collection of 12 short stories that this bookshop commissioned writers to, write these short stories. And originally, over the years, they've given them out in these little pamphlets to customers over the holiday season as just a thank you to their customers for shopping there. And so people have actually come to go to this bookstore around the holidays explicitly to get this commissioned short story. And so someone put some of them together into one, anthology of these short stories, and there are 12 of them. And so we were getting some gifts for people yesterday, and I saw it. I got a little gift for myself because I realized that if I read one short story every night before bed, then I'll be reading the last short story on Christmas Eve, and that just seemed too perfect to pass up. So I'll show that one later just because it is upstairs and I do not want to get it at the moment, but that's kind of what's on deck for the time being. And so I'm going to get started on Good Spirits and come back when I have some thoughts and have some initial impressions of that one. So I'm going to try to make this clip pretty quick because it is very cold by this window. So I have started Good Spirits by B.K. Borson. I'm on chapter 9, about 100 pages in, having a really good time with this one so far. So we're following Harriet, who is an antique shop owner, which is very cute. And then we have Nolan, who is the ghost of Christmas past. So we're learning a little bit about her past as she's going through some memories with him, but of course he just surprises her one day and she's not really sure what to think about someone just appearing, and she's at first very frightened, of course, and then eventually comes to believe that he is a ghost and has magic and has the ability to kind of transport places and call memories and all the stuff you'd expect the ghost of Christmas past to do. And so he's a little bit suspicious because she just seems genuinely nice, and he has talked to his boss and said, is this a mistake? Like, she seems like a good person. I normally haunt people who need to fix things about themselves or work on some things about themselves and be better people. She seems pretty genuinely good. What's going on? His boss says, no, it's not a mistake. You're haunting her for a reason. And so he just continues on, and they've gone through a couple of memories from her past. So we're getting to know a little bit about her past as well, her family situation, and also why she kind of holds on to things like you would expect an antique store owner to kind of get excited by these little trinkets and stuff that are old and passed down from generation to generation. Anyway, so you kind of see why she's an antique shop owner, why she's drawn to that, and see a little bit about her family. But he's still, at this point, not really finding in those memories any reason why she should be haunted by the ghost of Christmas past. So she has some pretty typical memories and, nothing so far that really shows why he's there. Anyway, but I'm intrigued, and their dynamic is already kind of cute. And he is corporeal, so that's kind of an interesting take on the Ghost of Christmas Past. But he is corporeal, although people don't really, can't really see him or pay attention to him unless he's haunting them. Anyway. But it's super cute. Also, I'm still just obsessed with this cover and the sprayed edges. Anyway. But yeah, it's cute. I'm having a good time. I'm going to listen to some more of this today and probably journal. I would do some work on the computer and apply for some more jobs, but it is so cold in this room. And I'm just so cold. I need to go upstairs where it's warmer, and my laptop battery, I can take my charger and see if I can set it up in a somewhat comfortable way, but my laptop battery certainly is not going to last very long, and I don't imagine that it's going to be a super convenient way to try to get some things done. And I do want to get some journaling done today anyway, so maybe I'll just start with that and get some journaling done while the previous vlog is actually, that video editing software is kind of finalizing the previous vlog. So I'm waiting for that to happen on my computer anyway, which means my computer is going to be pretty slow if I try to do anything else anyway. So I'm just going to let that go, do its thing, go upstairs where it's warm, cuddle up under a blanket, and journal and listen to some more of the audiobook of Good Spirits. Anyway, all right, let's go do that. So I have now finished, let me hold it up the proper way, Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. Had an absolutely fun time with this one. Super cute, super fun, surprisingly emotional. So I mentioned that she owns an antique shop, and this antique shop had been owned by her aunt. And her aunt and her mother did not get along. And Harriet really comes to realize how toxic her family is and learns to start sticking up for herself. And that's been something that she has had trouble with her entire life. And her family has always made her feel really small. And, her mother's just constantly disappointed in her and critiquing her. And anyway, so she comes to make some realizations about that, stands up for herself a bit. And yeah, falls for Nolan, and they have to deal with the fact that he is only supposed to be there at most through Christmas Eve, so that the other ghosts can come and see her. And so, there's this kind of ticking time element, and it was just so cute, so fun, as I said, emotional, and just very charming. I had a really great time with this one, so definitely a success for me. I'm now going to move on to All I Want for Christmas. It's over at my desk. I'm not going to go get it, but I will hold it up in the next clip once I have started it and actually have some intro thoughts. So hopefully I will check in tomorrow when I have started that one and, have some initial thoughts. So quick update. I have read a solid chunk of All I Want for Christmas by Maggie Knox, and I've been having fun with this one. I don't tend to gravitate towards books that center around music or the music industry, but I knew I enjoyed Maggie Knox's other book, and so I just wanted to go ahead and give it a go. I've been having a fun time. So in this one, we're following Sadie and Max, and we follow their story over a couple of different Christmases. So far, I'm in the part of the first Christmas that the story takes place. And on that Christmas, or around that Christmas time, they were competing on a singing competition in Nashville. It's like a country music singing competition. And Max is the son of a famous country music singer, but he wants to kind of come out of his father's shadow and make a name for himself. And he doesn't really feel like he's done that. He has recorded an album, didn't really make much of a splash. So some people might perceive him as, country music royalty and Nashville royalty because of who his dad is, but he wants to be that in his own right. And so that's kind of why he's gone on this competition, is to make a name for himself. Sadie is wanting to break into the music industry, and so she's come to Nashville to do that, and then is now on this competition, or in this competition. And so, and the setup for this is a little weird, but you just got to kind of roll with it. So in one of the episodes, contestants kind of pair off and do a duet. And so these two were paired by the producers. It was supposedly a choice, but they were paired up by the producers to do a duet. Everyone loved it so much and loved their chemistry so much that it kind of went viral. They got their, they had their couple hashtag name, and, it was everywhere. And that duet really struck a chord with people. And so the producers wanted to kind of keep that going and wanted them to, compete together for the rest of the competition, and wanted them to, and they wanted to kind of push this couple or appearing like a couple situation. So their agents are also all too happy to take this to the next level and full on tell them to pretend a date while competing on this show. And so that's kind of the setup here. And they want them to pretend for a while and then have, maybe a wedding to look forward to, and then a dramatic breakup. And like their agents are kind of orchestrating this whole thing to help their careers. But, they just love music and just want to win this competition. They have their own reasons for wanting to win this competition. And so they agree to do it. And of course, start to see a new side of each other. They had met very briefly once before. And so anyway, that kind of comes into it as well. But, at first they're not really getting along, or don't want to get along because of that first interaction that they had. But then they're starting to see a new side of each other and starting to get along and maybe falling for each other too. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. And I won't talk about more details. I'll just kind of give that general setup. And I think I'm, before too long, going to be getting to the part where, we come to this Christmas and then I guess something, I don't know what else is going to happen the next year, and how that relates to this singing competition. But I'm excited to keep going. I've been having a fun time with it, so I just wanted to give that quick update. I will be going downtown today. My former coworkers are actually having a happy hour that they have invited all of the former colleagues to as well, and I really would love to catch up with everyone, see how everyone's doing. So yeah, it would be really, really nice to just have a nice evening with them. So I'm going to be heading downtown, which will mean quite a bit of reading time on the train. And I also need to renew my DC library card. So I'll be spending some time in the library and who knows, maybe a coffee shop or something. So we'll see. I'll take this and read some more of this. I think I'll also take a nonfiction with me because I really would like to get to some nonfiction as well. And then I think my next Christmas read is going to be One Day in December. Oh, by the way, I keep forgetting to bring the collection of short stories down and talk about that, but I've been having a fun time reading one of these short stories every night before bed. I don't want to talk about each short story individually, but they've just been nice little short stories and involve some sort of mystery, involve something to do with that bookstore. And it's just been nice to read those before bed every night. So yeah, at some point, hopefully I'll remember to actually bring it down and show you the cover. But today is not that day, alas. So yeah, let's keep going with this one. And then once I finish this, I'll hopefully finish this Wednesday and then switch over to One Day in December. So, time to check in, and it has been a little bit longer than I intended between check ins, but I have finished All I Want for Christmas by Maggie Knox. And as I said, I don't tend to gravitate towards stories that involve the music entertainment industry, but this was fun. I really enjoyed what was going on over these two Christmases, the relationship between the characters and how that developed. And they are pretty cute together. There definitely were some moments where I wanted to scream, like, just say something or just say it, like, just get this over with. Anyway, so sometimes you want to just scream at the characters, which can be a little bit annoying. But overall, I still had a lot of fun with this one. And we'll definitely continue to read Maggie Knox Christmas novels because they've been fun. Or at least the two that I've read have both been a lot of fun. I don't know, the characters still had quite a bit of endearing qualities, and I just enjoyed getting to know them and enjoyed their dynamic together. And, the family stuff they were going through, was feeling what they were feeling. Again, sometimes they didn't make great choices, but sometimes that's fun to see, you know what I mean? And so sometimes you want to yell at them, sometimes you want to give them a hug, but it was fun. I have also read One Day in December by Josie Silver. And so here we're following Lori and Jack. And Lori is going to work one day on the bus, headed to work, and sees who she eventually comes to know as Jack. And he is not on the bus, he is outside of the bus, but they make eye contact. They have a moment. They have a real moment. And he is thinking about, kind of hesitating about whether he should just get on the bus just to meet her, and ultimately doesn't. And she and her best friend / roommate Sarah spend the better part of a year trying to figure out who this guy is. And this story takes place over the course of a decade. So we're kind of skipping forward and just seeing moments in time over the course of a decade. Anyway, fast forward a year, and Sarah wants to introduce her new boyfriend to Lori, who is obviously Bus Stop Man. And so she knows that she has this one moment to come clean and tell her that this was the guy that she saw at the bus stop and who they've been looking for, but she doesn't. And so, she ultimately ends up dealing with the fact that her best friend is falling in love with the person that she saw at the bus stop and was wanting to get to know. And that's all I'll say that's kind of the setup and all I'll say about the beginning. And again, we go forward in time, so we see glimpses in time. This is probably the least Christmassy feeling book of the ones I've read so far. There are quite a few scenes in December, so we do really check in every year with the characters around the holidays. So there are quite a few holiday scenes in here, and it does feel December-y for sure, even though we're taking place at all points in the year throughout the course of 10 years. Still feels very December holiday-esque, but not as much so as some of the other ones that I've read. And so, we follow the course of their friendships and relationships and the twists and turns in their life and what's going on with these two characters throughout that time. And again, I'm not going to spoil anything else that happens, but I really had a good time with this one. I had a good time following our characters and, the relationships they had with people, the decisions they made. And again, there were some times in here where I wanted to yell at them and some times where I wanted to give them a hug. This is another one of those books. And, at times got emotional and, just following the ups and downs of their lives and feeling the things that they were feeling. And it doesn't always work for me to do that. So, it can affect character development, at least for me, can affect character development because, for every update that we get, it'll jump forward months at a time. And, she'll say, oh, this is what's been going on in this intervening few months, or this is how this situation was resolved. And so, sometimes we don't really get to see the resolution of some of these things that are coming up, or we don't get to see all of these moments that we're hearing about. Of course, we are seeing quite a few other big moments and things that are happening in the scenes that we're following, but we're also hearing about a lot that we're missing, right? Like, think how much has happened in your life over the last 10 years and how different your life looks now than it did 10 years ago, right? And, how many moments made up those changes over the years, right? Too many to put into a 300 something page novel, right? And so you're missing quite a bit. And, it can feel like you don't really know the characters as well because you're being told a lot. Even though you are being shown some things, you're also being told a lot of things that you're not being shown, right? And so it can kind of feel like you're just taking a lot of those things at face value of, okay, this is what's happened and this is how the characters were feeling about it. This is how they reacted. And you're just kind of being told that. Or again, this is how this situation resolved or whatever. And so anyway, it's not always a style that works the best for me, but I do think this was a fun, good example of that being done relatively well. I just don't know if it's ever going to be a style that, hits the most or hits the hardest with me. But I did have a really good time with this one. So anyway, if that is something that you feel like you would vibe with, would recommend. And I did also remember to bring down, this is Christmas Crimes at the Mysterious Bookshop. And I wanted to go ahead and just bring this down and give a quick update, actually show you the cover. The cover is really cute. And just talk a little bit about it again. It's been so much fun to read one of these stories every night before bed. And again, this is commissioned by this bookstore, and really the only requirements are that it involves some sort of mystery and in some way involve the bookstore. So at some point, the characters need to interact with the bookstore in some way. And so there are some Christmassy ones. There are a few non-Christmassy ones in here too, but there are some Christmassy stories. Again, because the bookshop is in New York, these generally take place in New York. And it's just been fun to read these short stories every night. I've definitely enjoyed some more than others. And I know that short stories don't typically work for me or do a lot for me. It's not that I'm not enjoying this. That's not the case at all. But I'm just saying it's not always going to be the most impactful thing. And I knew that going into this. I just loved the idea of this bookstore commissioning these stories and putting them in a collection. Like, I just love that idea so much. And so I wanted to kind of support that. But I also knew that I would probably enjoy them even if they didn't end up being the thing that impacted me the most. You know what I mean? It's just not much time to settle yourself into a situation with characters and care about them and see what's going on. You know what I mean? It's just not a lot of space to do that. And I'm someone who loves intensive world building, character development. And so you just don't get that in short stories, or it's very, very hard to do that in short stories because you only have so much space for something to happen. But again, it has been super fun. And I think the short story collections that tend to work for me are ones that are set in fantasy worlds where I've already read the series, and this is just kind of a nice little side book to the series that just involves some short stories for a world that I already read in and know and love. Like, those tend to work really well for me. But anyway, sounds like I'm complaining. I have been having fun with this one, so I will continue to read one of those a night before bed. And then we are basically caught up. And the next one is going to be You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince. And this is by Timothy Janovsky. I hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, this is going to be the next one. I haven't started this one yet, so we are basically caught up. So the halftime is now over. So the Cowboys are now playing again. Remember the vlogs where I was vlogging during the halftime of the Cowboys games? And that was like a thing every week. Hasn't happened in a minute, but it is now the end of halftime and the start of the third quarter for the Cowboys game. So I'm going to go ahead and continue watching that. And I will check in once I have read some of You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince. Also, how cute is this? This was actually Matt's idea. We don't have space for a Christmas tree, but Matt actually had the idea to put the little tiny baby tree on top of this rotating bookshelf and just have the have the garland going all the way down, and those are some presents we need to wrap tonight. But yeah, I think it turned out super cute. We need to get some larger baubles for it because I only have these little tiny guys. So definitely not big enough for what's going on here, but I just think it's really cute. Anyway, I just wanted to show that. So it is now the 4th of January, and I was so ambitious about being able to actually film for the holidays. It did not happen. We had Matt's brother over, his wife, and their 1-year-old child. Like, there was literally no way. It was just chaos the entire time. So there was no way that was going to happen. But I did read a lot. And so we're just going to quickly run through what I was able to read after we just left off and just have a nice wrap up to this vlog here. Really, I had good intentions, but this is half just going to be a wrap up of what I read in December. So after we left off, I read You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince. This is by Timothy Janowski. This one was so much fun. So we have Matthew here. We have Hector here. Matthew is a rich, spoiled kid who basically there's a PR thing going on. His parents need him to lie low and maybe learn a lesson or two. And so they send him to his grandparents' house. And his grandparents have needed to kind of rearrange some things about the living situation in the house. And lo and behold, Hector is also staying with them for reasons. And lo and behold, they now have to stay in bunk beds together in the same room, of course. And so, of course, Hector thinks Matthew's kind of this spoiled rich kid. And at first he is, but does learn some lessons, falls in love with this small town. He ends up, kind of the main plot point of him changing some things revolves around him taking over the planning for this banquet, this fundraising banquet, and this year it's going to be benefiting the small business association of this town, so that the SBA can hopefully give out grants to small businesses in the area. And his grandmother runs one of these small businesses, so he really is hoping to do a good job and learn some lessons along the way. And initially he's hoping to plan this event so that he can basically get off early on good behavior and return home so that he can plan this wild New Year's Eve party with his friend back home. But through the process of planning this banquet, really, again, falls in love with Hector, who is super sweet. I love Hector. And just learn some things about not being a spoiled rich asshole, basically. So we also have Make the Season Bright by Ashley Heron Blake. Super cute. This is another music one. So if you're a music or a fan of books that center around music, this is another good option for the holidays. We have Charlotte and Brighton, who were engaged and come back together. They're both in the music scene, and then through circumstances of mutual friends, I think, come back together or are in the same place at the same time for the holidays, unbeknownst to them when they initially plan on going. But turns out they're both there, and at first they pretend not to know each other, and then eventually it kind of comes out, or they eventually tell people that they actually were engaged and that Brighton left Charlotte at the altar, and oh no, there's forced proximity and snowstorms that prevent them from leaving this cabin that they're in at one point in the book, and they need to actually talk things out, and oh my goodness, and they're super cute. I really like them and had a really fun time with this one. Actually was really enjoying the music Christmas vibes this year, apparently. This next one was one of my favorites. This is The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rosh. Super cute. So in this world, all of the holidays have a specific location. Like Christmas is a location, Halloween is a location, or at least and there's a royal family essentially who oversees that holiday. So at least that royal family is in a particular place. And so we have the Prince of Christmas, Cole or Nicholas, and then the Prince of Halloween, Hex, And so, part of the bad thing about being a royal and being in the Christmas royal family is that Nicholas's or Cole's dad has arranged a marriage for him without his consent or the consent of the woman involved, the Princess of Easter in this case. And he is friends with the Princess of Easter. So, they do get along, but they don't want to be married to each other and don't want to be forced into anything like that. And so, anyway, so that's kind of going on. And Halloween is none too pleased about this because they think a match with Easter would help them in their holiday, kind of spread the joy of Halloween. And anyway, so they think it would be beneficial to either match with Easter or actually Christmas, I think, is really who they would like to have someone matched with. And so, so, they're trying to figure out the best things they can do for their holiday, and their families are forcing them into different things. So Hex also doesn't want to be in an arranged marriage with the Princess of Easter, but he and Cole end up kind of competing for her hand, basically, through circumstances dictated by Cole's dad. And so anyway, they're kind of in competition for each other, or in competition for the Princess of Easter, and in that process end up falling in love and trying to figure out a way to, have some say and agency in what they do with their life, while also trying to figure out the best thing they can do for their holidays, because they do truly love their holidays. Anyway, super cute. I just love the idea of the holidays having this physical place in this royal family associated with it. I just think it's so much fun. And there's actually another book. I think it follows Cole's brother, Christopher, and one of the royals of St. Patrick's Day, I think. So I'll need to figure out if it's better to read that around Christmas or St. Patrick's Day. But anyway, I'm pumped to read the next one. Also read A Fellowship of Games and Fables. Absolutely love this cover. Super cute. This is the third book in the Adena Shire series. And this one follows Jez, who we meet at the Bake Off in the first book, and also follows our Tanya. And Jez has kind of been goaded into competing in these kind of winter festival games that this town holds. She has no plans to, but she kind of gets goaded into it. And in the process of agreeing to compete and saying that she's going to beat these two guys at the games, she, in order to say that she already has a partner, kind of claims that she's dating Tanya and that they'll compete together. But Tanya's actually super down to compete in these winter games and pretend to date Jez. She would love to compete in these games. She thinks it would be so fun. So she's actually thrilled about this whole situation. And of course, through the process of competing in these games, they fall in love. They're super cute. I love this small, cozy town. We still get to see the other characters from the other books. Super cute. Loved it. And then we also have here, the last book I read in 2025 was Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven, and I adore this one. I loved the writing. I thought the writing was gorgeous, and this is a YA book, YA standalone, pretty short, so I thought it would be perfect for the end of the year. And it was just giving, it's a fated lover story, so it's just kind of giving end-of-year vibes to me for some reason. So our two main characters here basically are fated to, so Evelyn and, is it Arden? I believe it's Evelyn and Arden. And they are basically fated to find each other. They're reincarnated and basically fated to find each other. And Arden basically kills Evelyn in every single reincarnation, every life that she has. But they're still in love. She can still tell that love is there, and there's this sort of fated connection between them. And then, at some point in her life also realizes that not only is she fated to love him, but he's also fated to kill her. And he doesn't really want to explain why. Weird premise, I know, but the writing is gorgeous, and you see snippets of their time throughout different lifetimes that they have. But you also have kind of a main thread of a more present day, 2022 in the UK. Is it the UK? Anyway, life that Evelyn is living. And, she really wants to save her sister. And in order to do that, she needs to live past her 18th birthday so that she can undergo this procedure that's going to help her sister medically. And so she's trying to be able to get more time. And normally she's killed before her 18th birthday or before she turns 18. So she's trying to get more time and, in this process, trying to figure out why they're fated to have their roles. Can this be changed? What's going on? Can they face it together? Anyway, it was just fun. I was just drawn in, sucked into the story, sucked into this present day timeline of her trying to figure it out and figuring out who he is. And they can be, across the gender spectrum in any given, and across the sexuality spectrum in any given life. And so, it was different or interesting to pop in different lives that they had and just get a little glimpse of them, but also have this main story kind of threading through. I don't know. I had a lot of fun. I was drawn into that story and her trying to protect her sister and, figuring things out together. I had a really good time with this one. So overall, very successful vlog and very successful reads for Christmas and the end of 2025. So that is a wrap, and I'll try to get this one up as soon as I can. I'm first going to get my January video plan video out and then probably get this one up as well. So thank you so much for joining me, and be sure to subscribe for more bookish content. I will link my Instagram down below, as well as more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.